Okay, Tov.
Thank you. So we have Baruch Hashem, I was able to download Shas over here, so I hope that it will be able to jump around from daf to daf easier than we did till now. And we're on daf Hey, on the top line. Rav, it might be a little different font, but I think that it's kedai, the value of being able to benefit of being able to jump around a little bit. Rav, megillah bisman koronos afilu b'yochid shlo bisman basar. Rav holds that if you're reading the Megillah on the right day, bismana, if it's on the right day, is this disturbing over here? No. If a Megillah is being written on the right day, so then you don't need a minyan. If you'll be yochid, you can read it without a minyan. But if you're reading it not on the right day, like 11, 12, 13, or the Gemara is going to say soon if it came out on Shabbos and you're reading it the day before, so then you have to have a minyan. Then even Rav holds you have to have a minyan. Rabasi holds that you always have to have a minyan. Even if you're reading it on the right day, you must have a minyan. Here Rashi says that the homochlokes is only lachatchila, but everybody holds you say even be yechidus. Other Rishonim argue and say that it's ma'akev. If you hold you need a minyan, then it's even b'diavad it wouldn't be good. The Gemara says on this, there was a story, and Rav himself was machmir like Rav Asi. Even though it was bismana on the right day, Purim on the right day, and even though Rav himself holds you don't need a minyan, but he was machmir for Rav Asi, he has to get a minyan. And the way Rashi explains that, even according to Rav Asi, it's only lachatchila. So Rav did. Even according to Rav Asi, he did the best that it could be. That according to Rav Asi, you don't need a minyan lachatchila. So once again, the Gemara said that if it's not on the right day, you're reading the Megillah not on the right day, then everybody holds that you need a minyan. And my focus was, if you're reading it on the right day, do you need a minyan? And Rashi holds this whole subject is lachatchila, but the Yevdi always yotzei. He just pointed out to some Rishonim argue and say that if you need a minyan and you don't have one, then you're not yotzei either. The Gemara we'll finish off the Gemara and then say what the halacha is. Or me, Rav Hachi. The Gemara is a problem about Rav. That Rav seems to agree that if it's not on the right day, you do need a minyan. And the Gemara is going to ask a kasha that we see that Rav Bechora says that you never need a minyan. The Amar Rav Yudah Breda of Shmuel Bar Shivas Mishmei the Rav. Rav said the following words: Purim shechol yois b'Shabbos erev Shabbos zmano. I'm sorry that I wasn't able to highlight that good. Purim shechol yois erev b'Shabbos. If Purim came out on Shabbos, the 14th came out on Shabbos. The halacha is erev Shabbos zmano. Erev Shabbos is the time. So the simple was we take to mean that you can't read the Megillah on Shabbos. You read it the day before. If Purim, the 14th, came out on Shabbos, so you read the Megillah the day before. Doesn't happen nowadays. We said the 14th doesn't come out on Shabbos. The 15th comes out on Shabbos by us, and we read it Erev Shabbos. But here it says that if the 14th comes out on Shabbos, so you read it Erev Shabbos. But the Gemara was bothered by the words that it says Erev Shabbos is its time. Is Erev Shabbos its time? Erev Shabbos manamu. Is that true? But Shabbos manamu. The 14th came out on Shabbos. So if you want to say, read it the day before, but you don't say that Erev Shabbos is the time. You must be coming to say that it's as good as its time. He must have meant to say that even though it's not the right time, it's as good as being the right time, which means that you don't need a minyan. Just like if it would be in the right time, Rav says you don't need a minyan. So also, if it's the wrong time, you're reading it the day before, you also don't need a minyan. So that's contradicts Rav, because Rav himself before said that if you're reading the Megillah not at the right time, then you do need a minyan. The Gemara says don't take it so literally. When he said over here that it's manam, he doesn't mean that it has a din of its time. It meant the Pashut Pshat that we tried to say, and even though you ask a kasha, why did he say that term? Don't take it so accurately. Lo, Megillah Basara. He does hold you need 10. He's not coming to say that as mamish considered as man. Since you're reading it the day before, the 14th, so you do need 10 people. What did he mean to say? The Rebbe, he's coming to say different than Rebbe, and also according to our gear, it's different than our Mishnah also. And our Mishnah said, our Mishnah says, when the 14th comes out on Shabbos, you read it not on the day before, you read it 2 days ago, 2 days early, you read it on Thursday together with the Kfarim. And that he's coming to say differently, that you don't do like the Mishnah, you don't do like Rebbe, Kamash Mulan, they have Shabbos Mana when you read it the day before. So the Gemara thought I had a kasha on Rav, that Rav said that Erev Shabbos is his man, and took it very literal that it's his man, and it has no difference if it's on time or not on time. You don't need 10, but the Gemara says no. That everybody holds if you read the Megillah not on time, you do need 10. But Rav just meant to say that when it comes out the 14th on Shabbos, you read it on Erev Shabbos. So as far as the halacha goes, you try to get a minyan, even bismanam. Even when you're reading the Megillah on time, it's better to have a minyan than not to have a minyan. But just to point out, the women, because sometimes their husbands read for them at home, and there's not 10 people, so it's not the greatest. If they can't, they can't. Sometimes they can't. If you can't, you can't. But if you could, so it's better to have a minyan. The
women could have a minyan of women.
Right. So they say that even for this point, you don't have to have a minyan of men because it's just for Persuma Nisa, so it's good enough to have even 10 women. It's also good enough. But if you don't have 10 women, so then it's not the best. You should try to get. But if you don't have 10, so we paskin like Rashi would say over here that b'diavad yotze. So you do say a bracha, even if you don't have 10, you do say a bracha. But shalom bismano, if you're doing it, if it's a case of let's say Purim comes out on Shabbos by us, the 15th comes out on Shabbos, and you're reading it the day before, that's called shalom bismano. Then the Gemara says you do have to have a minyan, and if you don't have a minyan, then you don't say a bracha. That's important to remember. I think that's the halacha, that even though if it's on bismano, we try to get a minyan, but if you don't, you can say a bracha still. But if it's shalom bismano, in the case we are reading the megillah not on the right day, like came out on Shabbos, and you're reading it the day before, so then you have to get a minyan, and if not, so then you read the megillah, but without a bracha. The mission continues. So we spoke about that there's a walled city that is on the 15th, and the unwalled city is on the 14th, and the small villages, they can come in on the previous Monday and Thursday. So we distinguish between a Ir Gedola and a Kfar. And here the Mishnah says, Ir Gedola called Sheish Ba'asar Batlanim. In order to constitute for a big city, it has to have 10 Batlanim, which we said means 10 people that are available always in the shul. Rashi says in order to have a minyan. Others say maybe it means that they should always be kavua in the shul. That should be people that are always learning. So in order to be considered a big city, it has to have 10 Batlanim. Less than that, it's only considered a village, which I just have to say that I don't understand this halacha because the whole point was that I was saying that the small village, they come into the big city. So he was saying they're not considered a big city. What does that mean? Are they traveling to any place else to hear them get to here? They can be a big metropolis, like we said, but if they don't have 10 Batlanim, they don't have a din of a big city. And what's the din? They don't read on the 14th, they go on the previous Monday and Thursday. They're not going any place, like the Mishnah ends off. We're going to see soon that if you don't go into the marketplace on Monday and Thursday to the big city, so what are we saying? They're not called a big city. This I didn't understand. I didn't catch on this halacha. We had it before a couple of pages ago. We said two halachas about it, that if even if it's a metropolis, the people are coming me'alma, it's not good enough. It has to have 10 batlanim that are kavua. The rest are considered a kfar. And also the Gemara said that if it was batil may asara batlanim, they lost their 10 batlanim and then they got it back again, so then they're considered a ir gedola again. This whole halacha about 10 batlanim, I don't understand it because they're not going to any bigger city. They're not going into any town. They're not moving any place. So then what does it mean that they don't meet on the 14th? So I don't have clarity on that. Just to point out, the batlanim is an interesting term to talk about people that are not working and they're learning. That's called a batlan. Usually a batlan we call a person that doesn't learn. Here, batlan means a person who's not working and he is learning. My Chabusha just pointed out that in Greek, the word scholar that we take to mean somebody who's an intellectual, it has two meanings. A scholar means an intellectual and it means also a leisure. And they say maybe the connection is because people who didn't have to work, they were the ones who were able to learn if you had to work. So you didn't have time to study. So the people who were the studious ones were the ones who were the leisure ones. The leisure not because they were just relaxing on a beach, but they were not working. They had the ability to learn. Maybe that's why that's the term for a person who's not working and he's learning. Maybe the scholar is called a batlan, maybe in English. Okay.
When I went originally, they called the guys that were learning, they called them the batlanim. That was a term that anybody came to camp, the camp or you're batlan. But then later they should change it to masmidim.
They probably meant batlanim originally, but this Mishnah means right, but people got it wrong. Batlan means that they're not learning.
So it was a nice term.
Yeah.
Now everybody that's learned, they call them
masmidim. Very nice. Yes, you go.
Excuse me, Rebbe.
Yeah, sure.
On Gimel Amid base, we had the Rebal said that if there are 10 batlanim, then it's called a kafar. So that was just his statement, and now we're seeing it in a Mishnah.
No, the Gemara over there was bothered. Look at that Gemara. The Gemara is the kasha. What's he telling us? It's a Mishnah, and the Gemara refers to this Mishnah. The Gemara asks, "And Bishul ben Levi, what are you telling us? It's a Mishnah." And the Gemara answers over there that he's come to say, even if it's a metropolis that people are always traveling through, and you'll always find 10 people in the shul because they're like by the Tachana Merkazit shul. There's always people over there because they're coming and going, but no one lives over there. So that's not good enough. It has to be 10 people that are kavua. So the Gemara itself asks the kasha that you're asking.
When it said in Ezehu Ir Gadol, that's our Mishnah now.
Right. So the Gemara is the kasha. What are you telling us? It's a Mishnah. And the Gemara says this there is. The Mishnah continues. And what we just finished talking about, reading the Megillah, and you can't do it on Shabbos, so we say you're supposed to read it earlier. Like we said, if you can't read it on the right day, you read it before, and Makdim La Maknisa also. The people that are on the small villages, they read it before. They don't read it after. They read it before the time. But there are some things that if you can't do it on the right day, say you do it later, you don't do it earlier. You push it off. You don't precede it. And what is that? 4 things. Which we had in Maseches Taanis, means the 9 days a year that certain families had the privilege of bringing wood to the Beis HaMikdash, and Tisha B'Av, and Chagiga, which is the korban you're supposed to bring on the first day of Yom Tov, the korban Chagiga, Shalmi Chagiga, and Hakel was the mitzvah on the first day of Yom Tov, on the first cycle of Shemitah. Matzai, how does it call it? B'moed Shnas HaShemitah, B'tzeis HaShana, that you're supposed to do the mitzvah of Hakel. The king reads certain portions of the Torah. So all these things, if it comes out on Shabbos, you can't do it on that day, so you do it later. You don't do it earlier. So man, say Kohanim, these dates, the 9 days, can't you do it the next day. If the first day of Yom Tov came on Shabbos, you bring the korban. And Hakel, if it comes out the first day of Yom Tov of Sukkot comes out on Shabbos, you can't do Hakel. So also you do it the next day. Rashi brings down to the Yerushalmi, how come Hakel you can't do on Shabbos? The other ones, it's not say Kohen is supposed to be korbanos over there. You can't bring it on Shabbos. Tisha B'Av, you can't fast on Shabbos. Chagiga, also you can't bring a korban Chagiga on Shabbos. Only a korban sibur. You can't bring a korban Chagiga on Shabbos. It's not. And Hakel, the Yerushalmi says, Rashi brings down because there's supposed to be a stage for the king to be able to read, and he can't make the stage, build the stage on Shabbos, and you can't build it every Shabbos because it would take out too much room in the Azara if it had been there the whole day before. So all those things, if you can't do it on Shabbos, you do it the next day. Back to Megillah. Even though you read the Megillah earlier, in the place when you read the Megillah earlier, either it came out on Shabbos or the Yom HaKnisa, there's the small villages where they read the Megillah earlier. So even though they read the Megillah, it's not Purim. So therefore, it's mutter b'esper b'tainis. Purim itself, you're not allowed to eulogize and fast. But the day that they read the Megillah, it's not Yom Tov. It has to be the Megillah. So that day is still mutter and tainis. It says also matanas lavyonim. Some take out if he say it doesn't mean matanas lavyonim. It means that you chayv matanas lavyonim. What we had yesterday, today's page, it said that Matanas Lavyon go together with the Megillah. Whenever you read the Megillah, the association of the poor people, that it's a happy time, they're waiting for the Matanas Lavyonim. So when you do read the Megillah, so then you give out Matanas Lavyon. And this mission we had already a couple of times. I'm Rabbi Yehuda, Emasai Malcolm Shenachlasim Sheni Bachamishi, Malcolm Shen Machlisim Below, Sheni Below Bachamishi, and Konos Elabasman. The whole leniency for the villages that they're allowed to do it earlier on the previous Monday and Thursday is only if anyway they're going to come on Mondays and Thursdays. But if they don't, that's not their custom. They don't come on Mondays and Thursdays. So then there's no reason to be lenient. Then they have to read it on the 14th like everybody else. The Gemara goes back to the Mishnah. What does it mean? Asar batlanim. Tana asar batlanim sheva beis hakneses. Batlanim means they're in the shul. They're not working. Not that they're not batlanim means that they're not learning. It means that they're working and they are in the shul. The Megillah, you don't push off the Megillah if you can't do it on the way, but you do it early.
But maybe Pshari is that even though there's two steps. One is that they're battle from work and they sit in the basic knesset. Next is they learn. But even if they wouldn't be learning, that's in the fact they're sitting in the basic knesset.
The Rashi himself doesn't even say anything about learning. I keep on saying it. Rashi himself says that they're not working in order to be available for a minyan.
And it comes out. So they're ready that something's positive.
They're not even learning. According to Rashi, it doesn't say that they're learning. It could even be that they're hired just to be there during shul time. It doesn't have to be that they're not working the whole day. Just in like the people that come kavua to be 10 people for a minyan. That's what Rashi seems to say.
Okay.
If somebody's in a little village and there's not a minyan, but he can go Chamishi and get a minyan, whatever, but it's not the right day. Should he wait or
not the right day for what?
Let's say it's the 15th and not the 14th. Let's say
so that's what what's he going to go? He's going to go to the big city. What's going to happen in the big city?
Okay.
They're going to read for him. And nowadays you don't have it anymore. It doesn't happen. There's no such thing anymore. But when the Gemara had this custom that people in the villages, they went to the big city on Mondays and Thursdays, that's what happened. When Purim came out on Tuesday,
right.
So the villagers came on Monday, like they always came on Thursdays, and they would read the Megillah for them. Right. There would be somebody in the big city that would read the Megillah for them on the 13th or the 12th, whatever
so
the day before.
To move the day and have a minyan, then do it yourself.
No, the case was not because they had no minyan, because they didn't know how to read the Megillah. Uh-huh. The people in the villages, they didn't know how to read the Megillah, or didn't have Megillah, whatever the case would have been, and they came into the big cities to be also the Megillah. They'd have to come on Tuesday and Wednesday special trip. So we say, don't come on special trip. You're coming anyway Mondays and Thursdays. Oh. So when you come, we're going to read for you. Right. That was good.
So I think what Moshe is asking is it better to read yourself or on the day, the megillah by yourself or the minyan on the Monday
Uh-huh.
or Thursday.
The way the Mepharshim explained, the Gemara wasn't talking about that. The Gemara wasn't talking about that they had an opportunity to do it by themselves and only coming in order to get a minyan. The farm could have had a minyan. They might have had a minyan, but they didn't know how to read the Megillah. So what would be the case if they have a choice of reading the Megillah on the right day without a minyan? So I think the way we paskin before, we said that on the Bisman you don't need a minyan, and even maybe even lachatchila, but yeah, but surely not. So it's better to read on the right day. I think that the whole point of the farm was here that they weren't able to read on the right day. By themselves, they'd have to come in anyway. So we thought we could read even earlier also. If they want to, they can come on the right day. The Gemara is going to say later on, if they happen to be in the big city on the right day, the Gemara is going to say a big chiddush. Even if they read the Megillah on Monday, let's say they came on Monday and they read the Megillah, and then for some reason they had to go on Tuesday again. For some reason they had to come, emergency, he had to go back again Tuesday. He has to read the Megillah again. The Gemara is going to say later on that even though he read the Megillah, he has to read it again because he's there on the right day. The Gemara says that you don't put off the Megillah to pass the time, only to precede the time. My time. How come you read the Megillah earlier and not later? The pasuk says "V'lo yavo," don't pass it up. So the pasuk on the pasuk means that "V'lo yavo something "V'lo yavo mitocha Yehudim." I forgot the exact pasuk. That means that it's not going to move away from the Jewish people. But the Gemara says a drash "V'lo yavo," don't do it later than it's supposed to be. Don't pass it up. So once the time comes, you can't do it later than that. You can't do it on the 16th, 17th. You have to do it dafka earlier and not later. Once the Gemara mentioned this, but the next Gemara is just because of the name, Rabba Mashmuel. So here comes a bonus. This is not to get to us at all. But again, Rabba Mashmuel. So let's speak out the Gemara first and then see it inside. It's going to say that years consists of months, a year of months, and a month is a month of days. And the Gemara is going to say that by years, you don't count the remainder days. You only count a year of months. A year has 12 and a month a certain amount of hours also. And Rashi and others before should explain that let's say by a year, that you say that it's 12 months, really there's, if you count the solar year is a couple of days more. It's like 11 days more, 354, 365. So you might, instead, the way we do it is what do? We count 12 months and the year is over. Then you have a remainder still. The solar year is longer. So after it adds up, after a couple of months, then you make a leap year and you get the Adar Sheni. But you might have thought that every year you always reconcile the lunar year with the solar year. And you say after the lunar year is up, also add a couple of days more. It's a year plus another couple of days, not 11 days. So you don't do that. The year is over after 12 months and you reckon with the extra days at the end to make a leap year. Also, as far as the month, you don't say that a month is 29 and a half days. Really, according to the tsunami times, Yud shows an amount of minutes, like 40 minutes. So you don't say that. You don't say that the month changes in the middle of the day. You might have said every 29 and a half days is a month. And you'll cheshbon always the half a day. You also do that. That the month goes by days. It's either going to be 29 and then 30. So the 29 and a half, so it's alternate. You can have every other month. It's going to be 30, 29, 30, 20. And you don't say that the month is over after 29 and a half days. That's what the Gemara is going to say now. How do you know that you don't count the years? Means you don't say how many days is the year according to months. 12 months is a year. The months of the year. So you see that the month only consists comprised of months. You only count months. Years, you don't count days. As we explained, the lunar year plus adding on how many more days left of the solar year. A different point. How do you know that you don't reckon hours for months? As Rashi says, don't say that the month is 29 and a half days, 29 days and 12 hours. You don't say that. That when you talk about a month, you talk a month of days. You only count days for a month, how many days there are, but you don't count hours. So therefore, you don't say that the year is 365 days, and you don't say that month is 29 and a half, 29 days and 12 hours. You just go with the days. Shmuel, and we're back on track again. The Mishnah says that the other things that when it comes out on Shabbos and you can't do it on the right day, you do push it off. Tishba, Chagiga, Hakel, 4 things. Ma'achrin v'lo makdimin. You make it later, you don't make it earlier. So our Gemara talks about 3 of the 4. How come you don't do it earlier? Tisha B'Av. How come you don't make Tisha B'Av earlier? If it comes out on Shabbos, make Tisha B'Av earlier. How come make it a nitcha? Make it a mukdam? The answer is you don't bring up the punishments earlier. If it's a problem, Tisha B'Av's a problem, the korban, so then you push it off. You don't make it earlier. Chagiga v'hakel also mishum dakati lamot azman chiyuvayah, that you can't do chagiga and hakel before the day before because it's not yet the right time. It's supposed to be on Yom Tov, so you can't bring it before Yom Tov. So therefore, you can't do hakel before Yom Tov. So therefore, you have to push it off. The next day, it's more. The Gemara doesn't talk about Zman HaSekonim, which is very strange. The Mishnah says 4 things, and then the Gemara only explains 3 out of the 4. It doesn't even mention Zman HaSekonim. Very strange. So Rashi does talk about it, but doesn't explain why the Gemara doesn't talk about it. Others just to point out that in the Dikdukei Sofrim it does bring down that some of the Girsa that's the Gemara's main question. How come Zman HaSekonim not? The Gemara is the kasha, and whatever the answer is, that's the question. What the words are supposed to be over there? Something that's not that it's the kfiyos didn't come or something like that. I'm not sure. I forgot what the words are, but the way they explain the answer might be is that by Zman HaSekonim that there were 9 days a year that different families had supposed to bring the wood. So if you bring it earlier, so you're trespassing on the person before. The person before has a right to supply the wood until a certain. So therefore, you're not to bring it. That might be, but in our Gemara it doesn't say anything. The Gemara can use. Tana, we learned in the Brisa. Chagiga v'chol zman chagiga man. So one of the things in the Mishnah that you push off if it comes on Shabbos is chagiga. And then that after Yom Tov came out on Shabbos, so you can't bring it. You can bring it the next day, bring it the day before. But the Brisa says a little bit more. It says kol zman chagiga, also ma'achrin. Chagiga ma'achrin, but it also says kol zman chagiga. Those are strange words, very obscure, vague. What it means. The Gemara is going to try to figure out a few possibilities those words might mean. Bishlam chagiga. What does it mean chagiga ma'achrin? If Yom Tov came out on Shabbos, you have to korban chagiga till after Shabbos. But what does it mean? It's man chagiga. What does it mean that you push off man chagiga? What does that mean? Mahi. So Gemara has 3 pshatim over here. First one, Amar Ra Oshaya. Rav Oshaya comes to say chagiga b'Shabbos, the whole Sri afilu b'Yom Tov is man chagiga ma'achrin. A chagiga always you push off because I'm sorry. Chagiga you push off if it comes out on Shabbos. That's what we said now. But there's another comment that even if it does not come out on Shabbos, also you don't bring it on the first day. This is going that the Gemara is going to say Beishama. Beishama that a korban chagigi you're allowed to bring on Yom Tov because something that people eat, that the korban chagigi is supposed to be eaten by people, even though it's a korban. So that Beishama says you could bring it. But the ola, which is completely burnt, that's not for people to be eaten. So Beishama says you're not allowed to bring it on Yom Tov, even if it's not Shabbos. A chagiga, Beishama says you could bring it on Yom Tov, but you can't bring it if it falls out on Shabbos. But an ola shriya, you don't bring it on a regular Yom Tov. Always, the ola shriya is always going to be the second day. Cholamoid. It's not going to be. So he first added words, something which says man chagiga, but it's something else. But something else he can't bring. Say what it is. He's supposed to figure out that it means ola shriya. That even which you could bring a chagiga, but you can't bring a. It's a little the words I think, but that's how Rav Oshaya is fitting it. That even something with a chagiga, there's something else that you cannot bring, and that goes according to Shammai Mamahi Datan. There's another point he holds you're not allowed to do smicha on Yom Tov. 2 points. So he says shlomi you could bring on Yom Tov if it's not Shabbos, but you can't do smicha. Avalo olos, but you bring a korban ola at all. You're not doing smicha. You can't bring the korban ola, and that's what it was fitting into this brayta. That it means to say that a korban ola, according to Bishama, ma'achrin, on the first day of Yom Tov, even if it's not Shabbos, you bring it next day. But we still argue on the whole thing. It says you could bring a korban ola sriya on Yom Tov. We still omrim mevin shlamim. Some kind of being a shlomim also. So according to this first shot, the Brisa is only Beishamai talking and saying that a chagiga when it falls out on Shabbos you can bring it on that first day, and all the you never can bring it on the first day. You always push it off. That's the first shot. Rava Amar. Second shot. We're trying to find the words. Shot these words. Calls man chagiga machrim. What do those words mean? Rava Amar. Chagiga calls man chagiga machrim means tfeilo machrim. Tfeilo chagiga comma calls man chagiga machrim. That's how he reads it. That you're allowed to bring a korban chagiga as long as the celebration is going on. Which the Gemara is going to say means that when it comes out, when on Sukkot is Sukkot, 7 days, then the 8th day Shmini Atzeres, really it's not the same holiday. But the Chiddush is that if you didn't bring a korban chagiga during Sukkot, you're allowed to bring it even on Shmini Atzeres. That Shmini Atzeres can also be tashlumin for Sukkot. The Tanan Mishlo Chag Yom Tov Rishon on the first day of Yom Tov, which he's supposed to, so he could bring the rest of Yom Tov, the whole day, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, even the 8th. Yom Tov Achron Shel Chag. Even on Shmini Atzeres also, he could bring the Korban Chagiga. That's the Chiddush that it says here. Chagiga, Kol Zman Chagiga Machron. You have to take it above a little bit. It's not going to be Bichol Zman Chagiga. It's going to be Chagiga, Kol Zman Chagiga Machron. The Chagiga, Korban Chagiga, you can bring as long as it's celebrating, even Shmini Atzeres. Of a regular below Chag and a Chag B'Achron. You said if you miss Shmini, then it's too late. You can't bring it anymore. That was in these words of Kol Chagiga Machron. And now goes the third shot to Rashi Yomar Chagiga V'Chol Zman Chagiga Machron means Afilu Atzeres T'Chad Yoma Machron. In Shavuos, which is only one day, the Chiddush is you gotta bring the Chagiga for all 7 days. We had this already mentioned also in different Masechta that even though Shavuos is one day, but as far as the Korbanos go, you're allowed to bring it. It's not another 6 days. Just like Pesach, you have 7 days to bring the Korban because it's a 7-day holiday. Shavuos also you have 7 days to bring the Korban, even though it's only a 1-day holiday. And the way how it fits into the words is not clear over here. I'm not clear how it fits into the words. Chagiga, Kol Zman Chagiga Machron. I'm not sure how it fits into the words. I don't really have a pshat Chagiga. As long as it's a Chagiga for other Yom Tov, maybe you're allowed to bring the Korban Chagiga Shavuos as long as it's as man as for other Korbanos in Pesach and not Sukkot. Sukkot is 8 days. Here it's only 7 days. I don't really have a good shot how it fits into the words. But the Gemara is going to prove that this is true.
It's not Tzeres from Chag HaSukkos.
What do you mean?
It's Chag.
Not following.
It says the Chag Yayin. I'm sorry.
Shavuos, the third teretz.
Shavuos.
Yes. How do you know? It says you can bring for 7 days. How does it fit into the words? Chagiga, B'chol Zman Chagiga Machron. Somehow it's supposed to mean you can bring it for 7 days, but I don't see it in the words. Unless it means as long as you could bring the Chagiga of Pesach, but I don't see that in the words too much. I don't know. Gemara proves now at the end that the lach is true, that you're allowed to be the Korban Chagiga of Shavuos. That Tnan Modim Shem Chol Atzeres Liyas B'Shabbos Shem Tov Shabbos. B'Shamai holds you never could bring the Korbanos of Shavuos on Shavuos because he said the Olas Riyah Shama Chagiga you could on a regular Shavuos you could, but the Olas Riyah can't bring. So it comes out that the Olas Riyah of Shavuos is never brought on Shavuos according to B'Shamai. You always bring it to Isrucha. You always bring it the next day, and that's called Yom Tovach, the day of slaughtering. But he usually says that a regular Shavuos you don't have to have the Yom Tovach. You don't have to have a day of slaughtering the day after because you can bring it on Shavuos itself. But he's molded that if came out on Shabbos, you bring the Korbanos of Shavuos on that first day. So then everyone agrees that you bring the Korbanos the next day. And that shows there's such a thing as bring it the next day. Not only the next day, the halach is even for 6 more days. That altogether, you bring the Korbanos of Shavuos for 7 days. If Shavuos plus another day, just like Pesach. So that was the Bryce that said, Chagiga V'chol Zman Chagiga Mach. It wasn't clear what those words meant. And we had 3 pshatim. Either it meant that Beishama is talking that the Korban Olas Riyah, you push it off. You don't do it early, you do it, push it off. You're never allowed to bring it on the first day of Yom Tov. Second shot was that the Chagiga of Geriv and Shmini Atzeres. The third shot was that Shavuos, the Korban Chagiga of Shavuos, you could also bring for 6 days later that the Ma'achrin, the Korban Chagiga is 6 days. Instead of doing the Lach on Purim, I'm not doing Rabbi Chanina. Rebbe not on the table Purim. Rebbe planted a tree on Purim. That's malacha. As far as the Gemara is concerned, the point's going to be that he did malacha on Purim. He planted a tree on Purim. The Gemara continues. We just could flow up now. Next page. He washed in a place in Tzipori called Krona Shel Tzipori on Shivas HaBatamas, the first day of Shivas HaBatamas. He washed. Rashi says that the word Krona Shel Tzipori is another way of saying in a public. Doesn't mean he washed mamash in public, but it means that everybody knew about it. There was in a public place. Some say on the side that it means there was a spring over there. Some say, my Chavusa told me that there's a place called Krona Shel Tzipori. Maybe they know what it is nowadays. A place which was a place for washing, which the Gemara is not going to discuss this. Then the say that it's no rechitza only Tisha B'Av, but on the Shivas HaBatamas there's no issue to wash. And the third thing is Bikesh Laka Tisha B'Av. He wanted to uproot Tisha B'Av, which what simply mean that there should be no Tisha B'Av. We shouldn't be mourning on Tisha B'Av. But on this last thing, the Chacham didn't agree to him to uproot Tisha B'Av. The Gemara first discusses the last thing about Tisha B'Av. Amar Lafanav Rabbi Abba Bar Zabla. Rabbi Abba Bar Zabla said to Rabbi Lazar, Rabbi Lazar, Rabbi Chanina, Rebbe lo kacha yamaisa. That wasn't the story that Rebbe wanted to uproot Tisha B'Av. El Tisha B'Av shechol dias b'Shabbos hava v'dechinu lachar Shabbos was a nitcha. It came out on Shabbos. If it would have been a regular Tisha B'Av, Rebbe didn't think to uproot Tisha B'Av. But it came out on Shabbos and he couldn't do it on Shabbos. So the halach is to make a nitcha. You do it the next day. And that Rebbe said no. That since it was already pushed off, so we from Rebbe hold the nitcha yidacha since it was pushed off. But that they didn't agree. But to uproot Tisha B'Av completely, that Rebbe also didn't agree on. Kalei tov mishnayim echad. So Rabbi Elazar or Rabbi Chanina, who was it at the bottom over there? Rabbi Elazar and Rabbi Chanina. So I guess it was Rabbi Chanina or Rabbi Elazar that he told him that it wasn't so, and he agreed. He said tov mishnayim echad, that two is better than one. Means I heard that Rabbi wanted to uproot Tisha B'Av, and if you wouldn't have told me that, I would have thought so. But you explained to me that he didn't mean to say that. He only meant one was a nitcha, and the mice wouldn't pass like that either. Even if it's a nitcha, you still have Tisha B'Av on Sunday. And middle of the halacha, we said that the Gemara doesn't discuss about the washing on Shivas B'Tam was a smutter. And now the Ikasugis goes back to the first halacha that Rebbe planted a tree on Purim. And the question is going to be, how are you allowed to do malacha? Rebbe, heck, you're not done the table Purim. How did Rebbe plant a tree on Purim? But Tani Rav Yosef said over a brisa, Simcha umishte v'yamtov. It says in the Megillah that Purim should be a simcha or mishte v'yamtov. And the Gemara dash in simcha means there's no eulogy. That's not happy. A eulogy is the opposite of happiness. Mishte, we dash in it's not a lot of fast. It has to be a day of celebration, of drinking. And Yom Tov is malacha. The fact that it says Yom Tov means that you're not allowed to do malacha. So the kasha is, how could Rabbi plant a tree on Purim? It says in the Brisa that it's a day that's also a malacha. So planting a tree is a malacha. So the Gemara tries to have a couple of possibilities. First, the Gemara says, El Rebbe bar Beisahava v'chinata v'cham Beisanota. He didn't plant on his Purim. He planted on Purim, but it wasn't his Purim. He was a 40 man, which means he was in an unwalled city. But he planted on the other day Purim, on the other day, on the Purim, on Shushan Purim, what we call on the 15th. And there's no one to plant on the any of a Rebbe B'Tveria, but Tveria Mukefas Cham Moshe Shua Benunavoy. Why you say Rebbe was a person who kept the 14th? He lived in Tveria. The Gemara knows Rebbe lived in Tveria, and therefore he would have kept the 15th because Tveria is a walled city, as we're going to see soon. That Tveria is a city that has a wall around it from the days of Yeshua ben Nun. So how come he's saying that he did on the other day of Purim that he was a 14th person and did malach on the 15th? Okay, so the Gemara changed it. I didn't mean that. That's meant to say he did on the other day. He was a person who was in Tveria on the 15th. He kept Purim on the 15th. He didn't do malach on the 15th. He did malach on the 14th. He planted the tree on the 14th. But the Gemara says, no, that's not so simple. Tveria has to keep 2 days. Was it so simple to him that Tveria is considered walled from the days of Yeshua and you only keep the 15th? He lived in Tveria and he kept both days. He read Megillah both on the 14th and the 15th because he had a suffix if it's considered walled from the days of Yeshua ben Nun or not. We're going to see later on what that issue was. But anyway, if you live in Tveria, you have to keep 2 days. So what's the case that he did malach on one of the days? The answer is Chizkiah had a suffix, whatever reason we'll see later on. And Rebbe didn't have that suffix. He held that Tveria only keeps the 15th, then he did malach on the 14th. But the Gemara says, no, don't tell us it's not good. Even if he knows which day is Purim, are you allowed to do malach on the other day? We had Megillah Steinus that's the first Torah Shabbat that was written down, and it has certain Yom Tov and Rabbanan, and over there Chanukah and Purim are also over there. And over there it says, Es Yom Haba So Ve'es Yom Chamisha So Yom Piraya Inun the Lola Mispah Bone. It says over there the 14th and the 15th of Adar is the days of Purim. You're not allowed to have a hesped. And over there, that you're not allowed to have a hesped on the day of Purim itself. If you're 14 or 15%, that's not a chiddush of Megillah Steinus. That's what we said. How do we say Simcha Mishta Yom Tov? It says openly in the Megillah it has to be days of Simcha. So that's not, you don't have Megillah Steinus for that. The Megillah Steinus is coming to add on to the halacha of the Megillah Sesta that you're not allowed to even have a hesped b'tainus on the other day. It means that a fourth person who's in an unwalled city, even on the 15th, the person in the walled city, even on the 14th, you're not allowed to do hesped b'tainus. So what does it help you telling me that Rebbe was a 15th person and he did malach on the that's hesped b'tainus. I mean, hesped b'tainus, that's also on both days. But they didn't accept the Isra Malacha. Megillah doesn't say just as Hesped time. So even though it's true that if you're wherever you live, you can't do Hesped times for both days, the 14 and the 15. But Malacha you only can't do on your day. But on the other day you could do Malacha. So Rebbe was in a area, he kept the 15, and on the 14th he did Malacha. The more as a kasha, Eini Rav Chaziel who gathered the Kashadi Kitna Bepuraya Volate. Rav saw somebody doing Malacha, a different story. Rav saw somebody doing Malacha that he was planting flax on Purim, and he cursed him. He was doing an Avera, doing Malacha on Purim, and Rav cursed him, or whatever he's doing, and it didn't grow. Because of Rav's curse, it didn't grow. But anyway, what do you see? That you're not allowed to do Malacha on Purim. So Umar says, no problem. That was on the real day. That was on his day of Purim. That was when he did Malacha on the same day. If he was a 14 or 14 or 15 or 15, but he was a 15 and he did Malacha. That's teres number one. So the first teres is that you're not allowed to do Malacha on Purim, like it says, Simcha or Mishtav Yom Tov. The word Yom Tov tells you you're not allowed to do Malacha, but you are allowed to do Malacha on the other day. As for the kindness is also both days, but Malacha is only also on your day. Teres number two. Rabba Brei Rabba Amar. This is the second teres. Afilu Tema Biyome. It could be that Rebbe planted the tree on his day of Purim, not on the other day. First test was that he wasn't not allowed to plant a tree on his day of Purim. He planted on the other day. He was a 15 in Tveria, and he did Malacha on the 14th. Second test is no. He planted the tree on his Purim on the 15th. But he said, is this a Malacha? The answer is, has to be the Tanis Kabilu Alayu, Malacha Alayu. So the Pasuk Mishnah b'simcha, but the Ilu Yom Tov say over there it doesn't say Mishnah b'simcha Yom Tov. It only says Mishnah. So there's no Yom Tov. So there's no Isim Malacha. It comes out according to the second teres. There is no Isim Malacha. Well, the Rav my time according to this halacha, this pshat that there's no Isim Malacha lamaisa. Some Rav cursed somebody for planting flax. There's no Isim Malacha. The answer is the one Nogo Ben Eva or Asrei the Rebbe lo no. There wasn't minhag. There was a minhag in Malacha. So for the express minhag, that's why I cursed him.
Why are you like curse someone for translating?
Because he has to keep it the same way he allowed to curse somebody for translating halacha. This is Hilchos Menhagim.
Why you like curse someone?
That's what it seems to say. That I'm still looking for Hilchos cursing. It doesn't say in Shulchan Aruch that you're not allowed, that when you're allowed to curse. It just says you're not allowed to curse. But in the Gemara, you see a lot of times people did curse. David HaMelech curses. Yirmiyah curses also. So there's a lot of curses in the Gemara also. Have light Allah Abaye, light Allah, he has light Allah Rav. So I don't know the lachas when you're allowed to curse, but it seems to say that if somebody's transgressing, of course, it's only going to be if he's doing it intentional. If he's doing it unintentional, probably he's not going to curse him. But if someone's an avarian, so it seems that you're allowed to curse. Mm-hmm. But don't do it. I don't rely on me unless you're not Allah. I don't know. Here it says that. Okay, I don't know the answer, but that's what it seems to say that there's no reason to curse sometimes. But I did. Maybe
it's coming toward Bezdin or toward Rav Shchuna. It's not Stam. I don't know.
But there are times that you're allowed to curse. In case of the people that they're enemies, they curse them. But that doesn't mean there's no special permission. It has to be that there's Allah who curse. So there are allowed to curse. Who's that? Who are the people? What's the limit so that you're allowed to curse? It's not. I don't know. And here. Did an Avera or something, and the Gemara sometimes there's something that an Avera also. If the Gemara does say that the curse was on that it didn't grow, maybe that at least the curse his action, that the action would be masliach. I don't know. But anyway, what does the Gemara say? That since it was such a minhag, and it's a halachic minhag, it's not just a custom. It's Hilchos Menhagim, that if they have a place that they made the issue not to do malacha, so then you have to keep the minhag, and if you went against the minhag, so they deserve the curse. But in Asrei the Rebbe, don't know. But Rebbe's place had no customs. He was allowed to plant. So according to second teres, there's no as a malacha. There is a minhag in some places not to do malacha. If there's such a minhag, you have to uphold the minhag. But if there's no such minhag, then you're allowed to do malacha. So we have two terusim. The first teres was he did malacha on the other day of Purim, and that's for Shomota. And the second teres is that there's no is malacha at all, but there's makom shenagu, a place which has minhag, not the malach and Purim, then you're not allowed to do. Ibo is saying it. Teres number 3. Let them know that there was a custom not to do malach in Rebbe's place also. So how come he planted the tree? There's an exception to the rule that you're allowed to do happy things, even though it's a malacha. You're allowed to plant a happy tree. There's a trees that bring happiness. The Gemara is going to say soon that some trees are time planting, whatever is going to be, whatever it might be. But if then you're allowed to on Purim. The Gemara is not bringing a case that they admitted the opposite. The Gemara is going to bring a case where they dafka planting of happiness. And the Gemara is going to say, once you find this concept called the planting of happiness, so it could be that even though on Purim, they did say that you shouldn't do malacha, but they made an exception and said that you are allowed to do things that are happy. And therefore, you're not allowed to do other malacha, maybe, or not that the Gemara is saying no, that there's it must fall off, that you're allowed to do malacha. Like the Gemara says, it doesn't say the word Yom Tov at the end over there. Mishnah V'Simcha doesn't say, but there was a custom not to do malacha in places, and even in the place where there's a custom not to do malacha, but happy things you're allowed to do. It talks about the 13th Nisan. And the 13th Nisan passed already, but they still and getting married. The Tanya Allah, we learned in a Bryce over there, what does it mean you're not supposed to build? You're supposed to minimize building. If it's a happy building, we'll see soon. What does the Tia mean? The Tia Shal Simcha means the planting of happiness, and that's the only thing that's usher. So too, it's not a wedding hall of what we know today. It means a room 4x4 or something like that a person adds on to his house when his firstborn son gets married. So he adds a little onto his home that the new couple. That's what you're not allowed to do over there, but available on Enu. And here, as though the Tishal Simcha, what is a planting of happiness, which you're not allowed to do over there by available on Enu? Some say that it means a tree that gives shade. It's like more of a luxurious tree, something to give you pleasure. Or some say that it means besamim. So those are things that you are not allowed to do. You would be allowed to do. Malacha comes in there, and there is a mitzvah places not to do malacha, even in a place where not to do malacha, but you are allowed to do a binyan and a tiyah shel simcha. That's the end of that sugya. We stumbled across Tveria. We talk about Tveria. Do you keep the 14th or 15th? Is it a suffix? It has a wall around it. Now it goes into that sugya. Gufa. We learned before. Chizkiah kari b'Tveria ba'abeisa b'chamesa. That Chizkiah was in Tveria and he read the Megillah on 2 days, both the 14th and the 15th. Why is that? Because he had a doubt if it's considered walled from the days of Yeshua. And therefore he read both days. The Gemara said before we had no suffix and he read only on the 15th. But the Gemara says, Milsa, the Tveria, is there a suffix about it? Of course, it is walled from the days of Yeshua. Vaksiv, Pasuk in Yeshua, the fortified cities, Hasidim, Tzer, the Hamas, Rakas, the Kinaras. It says a list of cities, and it calls them all Arei Mivtzar, fortified cities. Fortified city means that it has a wall. And over there, one of them is Rakas, the Kaimalan, Rakas, and Tveria. So it says the city of Tveria was fortified in the days of Yeshua. Rashi says over there, talking about the Nachla. So you see that it's walled from the days of Yeshua. So what is Chizkiah suffix? The Gemara answers, why you had a doubt? Because one side of the city was a wall of the Yam, I guess the Kinneret, the Yam Kinneret. So it's true that it was fortified. Yeshua is not talking about Halachas over there, he's just talking about it as a fortified city. Yes, it was fortified because it had a Yam on one side, so it wasn't vulnerable. As far as Megillah, he doesn't know if that's considered a wall. And therefore he had a suffix. If that was true, that's the reason why he had a suffix, because it had the Yam on one side, so then he shouldn't have had a suffix either. He should have said, surely it's not considered a wall, and he should read on the 14th. The Tanya, we learned the Bryce. This Bryce is not talking about Megillah, it's talking about the din of Batei Rechoma, which we said a couple of days ago, meaning that if you sell a house in a walled city, so the Torah says you have 1 year, and if you don't, then it gets misos. So about the house, there's Bryce says what's considered a walled city. So it says two halachas. Below shore eager. Halacha that if it's a wall of roofs, the word shore is not shore, not ox. Shore. Shore is make for a wall, like Alei Shore. Some say that over there, the pshat over there means an igra means roofs, a wall of roofs. That's mean if you have a wall that's made up of houses. They have that by Meir Shorm as an example over there. What's the name of the street over there after Meir Shorm? Shamar, that you see that it's a whole wall, but the wall is really houses. If you have all the walls, all the houses are attached to each other in a way that it forms a wall. It's nice. It's very protective. It's a nice thing to do if you want to make a protected city. But as far as the halacha is about Erechoma, it's not considered about Erechoma. If the whole wall is comprised of houses, that's not considered a wall around the city. That's one halacha, which is not to get to us right now. But this part is Saviv. The Bryce continues Saviv Prat L'Tveria Shamachomasa. That the word over there says when it talks about the wall, it says Saviv. It has to be surrounded, and that word tells us that Tveria is not a place like Tveria, which has a wall, a yam, which is one of its walls, is not considered a wall. It has to have a wall. So just like Babat Erechoma says that the yam is not considered a wall, so too by Mikra Megillah also, the Gemara thinks it should be the same talacha, and yam should not be considered a wall, so surely Tveria should be considered the 14th, be on the 14th. The Gemara says now maybe there's a difference. Many Babat Erechoma wouldn't but Erechoma that's not considered a wall like the Brisa just said. But maybe Megillah is different. King Gamasafkale, and then in Mikra Megillah, my present or my mukafim the chsivi gaving Mikra Megillah. When by Mikra Megillah it doesn't say the word choma. By Bater Choma it says the word choma, and it says that's not called a choma. It's not a wall. A house is not a yam is not called a wall. But as far as Mikra Megillah doesn't say the word wall. It says prozi. It says over there that an open city. It doesn't say the word mukaf over there. It says prosim. Is it prosim or is it not prosim? Is it an open city or not? That's the question. What's the definition of an open city? Mishum tahani miglu vani lo ba'inami megalia. Does it have to do with being open and not open? So then it's open because even though there's a yam and it's not vulnerable, that's as the vulnerability. But as far as being open, it's an open city. So then it would be considered the 14th. Oduma mishum tahani miglu vani lo miglu ba'inami megalia. Or maybe the criteria that the pasuk means when it says it's prozi, if it's protected or not. And a city which has a yam is protected. So maybe it's considered a wall city, not because of the wall, because if it's not prozi. What does the word prozi mean? That's why Chizki had a suffix and he didn't know, and therefore in Tveria you read for 2 days. Now nowadays I don't know what Tveria does exactly because we're in the old city of Tveria. Maybe it's an archaeological site. It's not going to be Dafka the Tveria of today. But if there'd be a place where they know where that was the old Tveria, so then you should read on both days. Does anybody know what to do in Tveria nowadays? It might be it's only
something up. Okay, go on.
Okay, and one more Gemara. Once you speak about this, Ravasi called Megillah b'Hutzal bar Beis Sabachamesa. Ravasi read Megillah 2 days on Hutzal. Hutzal is a city. I don't know where the city is. Hutzal is in Bavel. So Hutzal would be a city in Bavel, and he didn't know.
Someone else wrote me back. Some Beis Medrash Yeshia.
So I don't know how he knows that that's. I don't know how he knows that that's Bavel. Okay, I don't know. But if for some reason he knew, or he had a suffix at least, if Hutzal was walled from the days of Yeshua ben Nun or not, and therefore he read 2 days. So that's the halacha. If you have a suffix, then you read 2 days. He had a doubt if it's considered, if it was walled from the days of Yeshua or not. Ikadami, others have a different version.
And then both days you would make brachas?
So then I think they say brach on the 14th only. If you have a suffix, that's all. I think that the Ramah says if you have a suffix, then you do both days, but you only say brach on the 14th like everybody else. There are some cities nowadays that have suffix. A remote had a suffix till years ago. Now I think once Shuafat, then it became was built up. So then remote reads on the 15th. There's still a focus in some places. But the second Ikadamri Amr Abasi Hai Hutzal, they take out the word Beis Binyamin. If it's Beis Binyamin, then it's in Eretz Yisrael. But they take out this Hutzal, the same Hutzal as before. That's the point that we had Anshi Hutzal that used to carry things on their heads. There was a Masach Shabbos, Anshi Hutzal, that they is that considered the derech or not? There's the Gemara says Ruba the Alma. There's a place over there Hutzal. Also, the Gemara talks about Yosei Ish Hutzal, who Yosei Abavli. Okay, but here it says that according to the second version, that he Hayutzal Mukefas Chom Mimos Yeshua he. According to the second version, he had no doubt. He said for sure that it was walled from the days of Yeshua, and only read on the 15th. Okay, that's the end of the sugya. Just to go back and summarize more or less what we had. The first Gemara spoke about that the Megillah, if it's not on the right day, you're reading earlier, so then you surely need a minyan, maybe even b'diavad. And well, that would be the halacha, that if you're reading the Megillah on the wrong day, but when it comes out on Shabbos, you're reading it earlier, so then if you don't have a minyan, you don't say a bracha. But on the right days, some say you do need a minyan, some you don't need a minyan. I question if it's a makav or not. Over there, we paskin that you try to get a minyan, even if it's on the right day, but if you don't, you can read the Megillah even with a bracha. The Mishnah spoke about Yer Gedolah, which I didn't understand, that you have to have Sarah Batlanim in order to be in Yer Gedolah, not as a kfar. And then the Gemara said that even though by us we're pushing it, we're preceding it, making Megillah earlier if you can't do it on the right day, but other things you do push off. Manas Kohanim, Tisha B'Av, Chagiga, Haka, all these things you push off. Over here on the day that by Megillah, when you read the Megillah earlier, so it's not, and therefore the best of the time. Conversation of the poor. Abuda says that they only have this din of Sheni v'Chamishi if they come in earlier, if they come on Sheni, but if they don't, nowadays they don't. There's no such thing, so there's no any more halacha to proceed Megillah to 11, 12, and 13. The reason why you don't push off the Megillah is because Batlana means Batlan Beis, and the reason why you don't push it off is because it says V'lo Yavor. We said that a year is not 12 months, and they count less than that. We said Tisha B'Av, you don't make the Peronius earlier. Chagig and Hakal didn't come to time yet. Maybe as Manas Economy because you don't want to trespass on other person's rights that he has the wood earlier. So in the Gemara, clear. The Gemara had a brayta that said do bring Chagig on the first day, and also about Tashlum and Sukkot is even Shmini Atzeres, and Shavuos also has 6 days altogether to be able to bring the Korban Chagig. As far as the Malacha on Purim, the Gemara had 3 pshatim, and we paskin that there is no Isser Malacha on Purim. There might be a minhag, but there's no Isser. And a place where there's a minhag, you have to keep the minhag. But even a place where there's a minhag, we said that it's mutter to plant a happy tree or a happy building that is permissible. Agav, the Gemara said that there's no Isser B'chitza and Shivas B'Tammuz, and Rebbe wanted to be okay at Tisha B'Av Nitcha, but we don't pass like that. And then we had the din about Tveria. And that's the question if it's considered a Mukaf Chom and Moshe Shua Benon or not. The Gemara brings the pasuk in Yeshua that it was fortified, but the question is that since one side is the Yam, is that considered prozi or not? As far as Batei Choma, it's not considered prozi. Agav, over there you also have, it's not considered a choma, I'm sorry. And as far over there also says that a city, a wall that's made out of houses is not considered a wall either. But as far as halacha here, the Gemara said maybe prozi means that it's opened or means that it's vulnerable, and that's dependent. What would be the din of a yam? So Tveria would read 2 days out of a suffix, and the Gemara ended off that Rav Asi about Hutzal. There's a question about Hutzal, if that was a city which was woke up with Musliman. I don't know if that has any relevance nowadays. We don't know what's all this anyway. Yasher koach, everybody. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Yasher koach, everybody. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Good Shabbos.
Good Shabbos, everyone.